blessing.
Yeah, right. Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
What it's there for.
I'm very harsh on people sometimes, and that sometimes is once a year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty nice otherwise.
Twice a year.
What's the other time?
Ash Wednesday.
Oh yes, no, I'm especially mean on Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
On Ash Wednesday, I'm borderline violently unpleasant.
You get really into the confession of sins.
As one ought.
Yeah.
As one ought. The confession of sins.
Until such a time when it is.
Until such a time which this godly practice is to be restored, which is very much to be desired, we shall instead just harangue you publicly, corporately, and not individually.
Yeah.
But what fun.
Yeah.
What fun to actually get that all out there.
Yeah.
It is a great pleasure to me. Mm-hmm. And to the general public because they seem to show up for it. New shoes?
No.
Old shoes?
Old shoes.
Purple shoes.
Purple shoes. I need to paint my toenails. They're real bad looking, so I had to cover them up.
Me too.
I know, right? That pink that you have is a little bit chipped.
Welcome to the Shepcast.
Welcome to the Shepcast.
Welcome to the Decision Cast. Well, where we had to go between the two possible things.
I thought maybe we had to make a decision for Christ.
Okay, no. All right, now, because the seasons of the church year, there is always, not always, but when there's a minor festival, there's an A side and a B side. We have the option of talking about the Martyrdom of St. John the Baptist. I will likely talk about that like the Wednesday.
If it's there, yeah.
Yeah. Or I'll likely put it in there. Like I don't want to skip it altogether.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need to talk about it right now because, as Amanda justly pointed out, we just talked about that.
Yeah, not very long ago.
Not very long ago, and I'm kind of burned out on talking about that exact topic. Like I said everything I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And I don't think the congregation would benefit more by being all like, oh, wait, John the Baptist martyrdom?
Right.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
Who could have seen that eventuality?
I mean, not him.
Well, I mean, I think he knew what was up.
Yeah.
You get imprisoned by King Herod, you're probably not going to get a bag of money.
I meant after his head was
Oh,
from
and they
his
didn't see
body.
much happening after that at all on account of being dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beheaded.
Yes. Yeah. But such is life in Herod's Israel. Mm-hmm. You get killed pretty good. He killed John too. Not John, James.
I was like, yes, he did.
Like, he killed John as well
that.
as John. No, James. Mm-hmm. He had James killed with the sword.
Which we also just discussed not very long ago.
Right. So, yeah. What a rogue this King Herod is.
He's a killer.
He's a killer, stone cold killer. But so was everybody back then. Life was cheap, and you stayed in power not by winning elections, as we have coming up in this country very soon. You stayed in power by making sure all of your political rivals were, dead and weren't able to run for office.
Indeed. Or at all.
Sorry?
Or at all.
Or at all.
Able to run at all.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, they were dead.
Yes. I'm using the NIV today. Are you using the ESV?
Yeah. Are you using like NIV, or are you doing your tricksy NIV?
I'm just gonna use the NIV.
Last time it got bad. Like last week.
I know you got real upset.
I did because it was real bad.
You got so mad and you stomped around and you got this notebook out and you went.
Yeah, I know. Total duck faced into it.
Yeah. In your fury and rage.
That's right.
Yes. But this time I'm only going to be using the NIV.
You better.
Calm down.
I will not calm down. Ever.
The New International Version will be the only version that I'm using for today.
All right.
Now,
is it the like 1982 NIV?
Or which one's going to make you the angriest?
The newer one.
Yeah, all right.
Because I don't like change, remember?
Yes, correct. Library of Congress card number 20089311706. Okay. NIV text 84.
84. I couldn't remember which 80 it was.
84.
Perfect. That's a good one.
Yeah. The message is from 2002.
That's a bad one.
All right. Now it's the 14th Sunday after Pentecost or something like that.
Indeed it is.
Indeed. What are we looking for our Old Testament reading?
Our Old Testament is Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 1 through 2 and 6 through 9. And now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you, and do them, that you may live, and go in and take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving to you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of your Lord your God, that I command you. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is to us, whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children.
Okay, so do it already.
Yeah. Stop adding stuff. Stop taking stuff away.
Now, look, I know what you're going to do, because you're going to talk about how people add stuff and take stuff away from the Bible.
No, I wouldn't do that.
All right, we've made this point before. We'll make it again. It's a very simple point. We made it last week, I think. Mm-hmm. The point is, if your version of Christianity is the one where you either agree with something or it doesn't count, then why have it?
Yeah.
Then why have it? Like at least admit that you don't like it. Mm-hmm. But to say that it was never intended to be there in the first place, like you have huge parts of the Bible that you don't care for, but you're all like, but that should never have been there in the first place. That just snuck in somehow, copying error, who knows? Mm-hmm. Why have it at all?
Well, and again, like last week's topic was very controversial.
Very
I think
spicy.
You had a content warning in the Shepcast description there. And like for good reason, because people look at it, say it's dumb, and then disregard it, right? There is no solid reason behind why a person would want to get rid of it other than they don't like it.
Right. Like it's very difficult to make the case, given that sentiment, as I said on Sunday morning, gets expressed in Colossians, Ephesians, and 1 Peter. Like not verbatim, but pretty like much the same thing. Given that that's in there like thrice, you'd think it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
And all the people have said so far is to say, well, things was different back then. How? Like how have the core notions of human beings changed in 2,000 years? Because the essence and core of humanity has not changed. So, for example, back in the time of Deuteronomy, they said you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, manservant, maidservant, ox, donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor, right? Well, but back in those days, those were important stores of wealth, right? That you would have an ox and a donkey, and they would do work for you, right? Like if you had an ox or a donkey, that would cut the amount of work that you could do in four, because you weren't like hauling literally everything on your stupid back and grinding yourself into the dust. Important stores of wealth, but guess what? Times have moved on, and so now nobody around here is coveting oxen or donkey. Nobody's all like, I sure could use a donkey.
Kind of sometimes. Have you ever seen like a donkey just being all like donkey-ish out in the
field?
field?
And I love looking at them. I don't want it.
You wouldn't want a donkey?
No. Would you?
Hanging out in your backyard being all donkey-ish?
No. I get the feeling they're horrible, stubborn, terrible animals that are like they're cutesy poo to look at or to have at the petting zoo or whatever, but you don't want to be that snug with them like long term. You don't want to be the one shoveling hay and shoveling out the poops.
I mean, I don't want to do the work, but just having a cool little donkey.
The only reason that you would want to have it is not because it's cute, but because it's a working animal.
Right.
And it does work for you. But
or it protects. The other thing it does is like if you have sheep or something, it'll protect your sheep. You know, you have a purpose behind.
A donkey does?
Yeah.
That can't be true.
It's true.
No, it's not.
It is. My grandma's neighbor had sheep and they had a donkey in the pen because it protected the sheep.
From what? Other donkeys?
No, from like coyotes and stuff like that.
I guess the donkey's a bit big for the coyote to take down.
Yeah.
But like, I don't believe that. Like, would the donkey go to the sheep's defense and like mule kick the coyote?
I guess. I don't know. I just know that they always had a donkey in the sheep pen.
All right. Oh, cool.
I feel like I need to fact check this.
I mean, you might want to, but carry on.
No, we're gonna
sure,
fact
fine.
check.
While Amanda fact checks this, I'd like to say that like, so that part where we say the coveting, like what you're coveting has changed, but the fact of coveting has not, right? Or to put it another way, murdering people with clubs was the behavior du jour back in like way Old Testament times.
It's like the very first thing that came up.
What's that?
That donkeys as guard animals with sheep. That they bond with the sheep, and then there we go. The donkey's natural herding instinct means if properly bonded to the sheep, it will stay with the sheep most of the time.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Well, I never thought I'd see that.
There you go.
Okay, but like the point that I want to make is that you can say, well, people are different now. I guess coveting is not a problem because we don't covet oxen or donkeys or manservants or maidservants. Yeah, but we still covet all the time. In fact, we have whole industries based up of nothing but coveting.
Absolutely.
Right?
And like your donkey is replaced with something very equivalent, right? Like something that will do the work for you.
Yeah, of course. But like you're still going to...
And I wish I had that fancy car that does the driving for you.
The quad or the tractor or the like automated light system or whatever, right? Doesn't matter. The stove, dishwasher, who cares? I wish I had nice things, is what it comes down to. Yeah. Fine. But like you'd be stupid to say that God doesn't care about coveting anymore because we don't covet donkeys.
Right.
Of course he does. You are mistaken for thinking that God in some way doesn't care about anything in the scriptures just because like we have iPhones now. Right. Like as though that's the magical thing that says, well, now God just doesn't care because no, it's not even about the iPhones. It's about like God cared about this stuff until I came along and disagreed with it.
Right.
Now he doesn't care anymore. Why doesn't he care?
Yeah.
Like why all of a sudden is God shrugging his shoulders and saying, do whatever you want now, I guess, because you're here. We were just restricting people till you came along. The whole point was to create a church and a life and a civilization and like material comforts just so you could be born into it. Because you're the Alpha and the Omega. We wanted to make sure that you were going to have a nice, easy landing, and that's it. And that's as deep as it goes, right? Where people aren't like all they're doing is they're saying, well, things are different now because the breakdown that I heard about like Ephesians from last week when I was listening to some other podcasts to try and get an idea of what other people were saying about it, they were saying, well, things were different back then. I'm like, well, explain how though. Yeah. They're like, well, people needed good order in their houses then. I'm like, we don't now.
Like we need it more than ever.
Of course we do. Like, have you seen the divorce rate? Is not good.
No.
Like, it's not like we're winning here. No. It's not like all of a sudden we have gotten to the point where we're like, yeah, well, wow, we know how to run households way better than they did now. Divorce rate through the roof, infidelity all the time, misery and unhappiness. And we're like, yeah, we've cracked the case. Good thing we got rid of all those pesky rules that told us how to run a family. Yeah. To just shrug and say, well, people were, it was different back then. You have to explain how it was different. Like what fundamentally changed between then and now that meant that you no longer have to listen to God.
Right.
And I'm still not seeing it, right? Like not in these big issues. And in fact, as you just pointed out, you probably need them more than ever now because you don't have the benefit of a community and family and nation that agrees that these are good things. Now, if you're going to be running this stuff, you're running it on your own.
Yeah. Like
it's just you and your family against the whole world on this stuff, essentially.
It reminds me a lot of the game Jenga. You played Jenga before?
Jenga.
Yeah.
Jenga. You take a block.
So you start out with a very sturdy tower, right? Where everything has its place and it's all ordered.
3, 3, 3, 3, or 4, 4, 4, whatever it is. Yeah.
It's 3, 3, 3, I think.
Yeah.
But once you start removing things, once you start rearranging it, it gets very, very tippy, right?
You take a block from the bottom and you put it on top. Yes. You take a block from the middle and you put it on top.
Yes. Block from the bottom and you put it on top. You take a block from the middle and you put it on top.
Yes, exactly. But that's the jingle's not what I was going for.
The Jenga jingle?
The Jenga jingle. But I mean, like this thing where you start out with a structure that is meant to be upright, and then you start removing things, moving it around, which I understand is the point of the game.
Yeah.
But you're left with something that isn't very sturdy, and basically the whole game is just to see how much you can remove before it falls over, right? And it feels like that's where we're at right now.
That's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
A little bit.
Or it's a lot like Flower Mountain.
Oh, I love Flower Mountain.
Right. Flower Mountain doesn't have a jingle, but it's a classic game.
It is classic.
Flower Mountain.
I hope you have a picture you can put in here.
I'll try to find one, but Flower Mountain, the excellent game where you take the bowl and you fill it with flour and you put the plate on top of the bowl, you flip it over, take the bowl away, and the flour will retain the shape of the bowl for a while. Then you put a Smartie or a M&M or a Skittle on top. I don't think I've ever used the singular term Skittle. in my whole
You've
life.
never used the singular term skittle?
I've used it for skittles, like the game that you play, but I've never used it for...
There's a game Skittles?
Yeah, there's a game Skittles. I guess you call it bowling.
Wait, what? You don't call bowling bowling?
Look it up. Look up the game of Skittles. You'll see that it is basically bowling. Basically. But yeah, that's I would call those, like, be like a Skittle for that. But I've never said, because I've never wanted somebody to give me one candy and said, "Hi, can I have a Skittle?"
You've ever asked somebody if they wanted a Skittle?
I've asked them if they wanted some Skittles.
A Skittles game of bowling at pins played primarily in Great Britain.
Yeah, there you go. Play
you go.
Skittles. But yeah,
Interesting.
Because they skittle around. Anyway, so you put a Skittle or an M&M or a Smartie on top, and then you take turns spooning out a spoonful of flour, and eventually the structure will become so unstable that it will collapse. And again, the game is to see how much can I take away before it falls.
Yeah.
And we're probably running right up against how much we can take away, actually.
Oh, I think we're very close.
Like we're very close to having pulled out so much that it is so porous that it will disintegrate.
Yeah.
It's a very real possibility. It's not 100%. We could last a little bit longer. Who knows? Who cares? But you'd be crazy to think that we can still coast on fumes indefinitely.
And I mean, like, the thing is, too, that with the Flower Mountain, yeah, or with Jenga, you can't really go back, right?
You can't put the flour back in. You can't put the Jenga blocks back in. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And every piece you take away makes it more thoroughly unstable until such a point which it collapses. Mm-hmm. And that's
of course makes sense here too with this reading, because if you keep taking stuff away, what's left?
What is left?
Like,
and
just a good job, you done good. Like, you get that everywhere.
But you have to have it everywhere, lest you not hear that same message perpetually, I guess. It's got to be the same thing all the time in all media, in all interactions, in every institution and every organization. You have to have the same thing, which is you're doing the right thing, don't worry about it, which is not true all the time, or even some of the time. And it leads to what we got right now.
Right.
Which is everybody thinks they're doing an amazing job all the time, no matter what, whether they are or not.
Yeah.
And good luck convincing them that they're not, by the way. That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that's the main
thrust.
Yeah.
What's our epistle?
The
Ephesians?
last Ephesians bit. Ephesians 6:10-20. The armor of God.
Oh, yeah. 6:10-20.
Mm-hmm.
I will read this from the NIV.
Thank you.
Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, and against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the saints. Pray for me also, that whenever I open my mouth, words may be given to me, so I will fearlessly make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may deliver it fearlessly as I should.
Now imagine if you were going into battle and you were expecting your sword to protect you, and there had just been pieces taken out of it all willy-nilly. How well would it protect you?
Be pretty brittle.
Would be.
Be pretty brittle. But you're also punching holes through everything else, right? Like you are making weak spots in all those pieces of armor.
Yeah.
Because of course, like you mentioned, like you'd be just carving up pieces of the sword, and once you lose that kind of structural integrity, it doesn't do too much. But also, when you have the belt of truth buckled around your waist,
yeah.
If you've taken big swaths out of that, it's not going to hold things together very well, is it?
Then you're looking like a fool with your pants around your ankles.
Well, the belt is not just for holding up pants, but like picture it like an old West belt. You know those oldie westy belts? You know what they had on them?
Like your holster?
Yeah, your gun, right? That like there's belts you used to keep up your pants, and then there's belts that you used to like for equipment.
Right.
And in the old West, you'd have two belts. You'd have like the one that holds up your pants, and then you'd have suspenders or
I was
whatever.
gonna say you probably had suspenders.
And then you'd have like your gun belt,
Yeah.
which had your gun and your ammunition on it and that kind of thing. Here, like when you're talking about like your breastplate of righteousness or whatever, that was like all cinched in and attached to you with your belt.
Yeah.
So if your belt is not active, that breastplate's all flopping around and doesn't really, protect your guts too well.
Doesn't protect you, and it doesn't give you anything to fight with, right?
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? And armor always has weak spots no matter what, because your armor has to be designed for you to move.
Right.
Which means it has to have joints in it at the very least. Mm-hmm. So where the armor connects with other pieces of armor is where it's going to be the weakest. So your elbows, your knees, that kind of thing. It's going to be like weaker there than it is anywhere else. So if your breastplate is down here and here, it'll protect your the front of you okay, but it won't protect your back or your sides too terribly well, because you need to move because you're a fighting man. So it's already going to have weak spots in it, and this is not about the armor of God. This is about armor in general.
Armor, yeah.
But why would you want to make more weak spots?
Right.
Why would you want to make your enemy's job easier by drilling holes in your shield that are like convenient spear size? To give them something to shoot for? Like, why? Because why would the enemy attack you anywhere other than where you've exposed a massive weak spot? Right. He's not going to bother attacking you on like the plain front of the armor that is like there and intact and in great shape. Like in video games or whatever, like the enemies that you fight as like the bosses always have this big glowing weak spot that you're supposed to shoot, like here, or like a headshot or whatever, because you can't, like, you're just plinking away at their armor does nothing. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing here, where you're going to want to, the enemy's going to want to attack you where you're weakest.
Absolutely.
And for a large part of the time, you're just showing him your weakness. Yeah. You're saying, hi, what I've done is I've taken out certain parts that make things very weak in a few capacities. Now, where are you going to hit me? I hope you hit me where I'm strongest. Probably not gonna. Yeah. Probably only going to bother shooting for the parts where you've shown him a massive glaring weakness. Yeah. And you said, hit me here. Blast it wide open. I have no defense in this one particular spot. Gee, where are you going to hit me? Well, where do you think he's going to hit you?
Right. And again, as we've read several times throughout the entirety of the scriptures, the devil will know exactly what to do, where you are weak, how to hit.
Well, because you tell him.
For sure.
You tell him openly. You say, hey, this is what I don't believe in. Mm-hmm. And the devil goes, okay, I'll hit you there then. You're like, how could this happen?
Yeah.
Surprise Pikachu face. How could this? What? How?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what did you think was going to happen? Yeah. Especially when you had the armor delivered to you intact. The sword was intact, the armor was intact, the belt was intact, the sandals were intact, all these things were intact, and then you go and you just like pop out the parts you don't think you need. You take the armor that you're given and you take out some rivets or whatever. Who needs these? I don't need these. You take the belt and you like take out certain loops, or you take the sword and you remove certain like the hand guard or whatever. Who needs that? That's in the way. Yeah, well, it's not like you had to build this armor yourself. No. All that you do is make holes in it. Yeah. And then you expect it to be able to work when you went as hard as you could to make sure it was ineffective.
Right.
And you don't need to do that to yourself. Like, the armor that's been given to you is given to you for a reason, and it works. And if you wear it and don't monkey around with it, and like, you don't even have to like do the maintenance work necessarily, you just have to wear it. Yep. And as long as you're not like drilling holes in it actively, it should be in okay shape.
It should be. But of course, we know that isn't what we do.
Well, how about this then? How about picturing a world in which people start taking parts of this off because it's hot and uncomfortable and heavy. Yeah. Right? Like, geez, this is pretty heavy. This helmet, I can't, it's really weighing heavily on my noggin. This breastplate is pretty heavy for me to schlep around. I could move a lot faster if I wasn't, if I didn't have this shield to drag around. Of course you could. Yep. But you're going to be attacked.
Well, and the thing is, what are you replacing it with, right? You were replacing the good and perfect armor that God has given you with the faulty knowledge that you can protect yourself.
Well, with the thing that you make for yourself,
Yeah.
right? And
It's like having the three little pigs, right? Where you could have the house of straw, or you could have the house of bricks. Yeah, the house of straw is easier to make, but when the wolf comes to blow in your house, which one's going to fall, right?
and you can only, if I told you to go and make some armor right now with
Oh my
what you could
gosh.
find around here, like, what are you going to do? You're just going to strap some phone books to yourself? Are you
I know,
gonna,
I'm
like,
looking up in the rafters here to see what we've got from old VBS supplies, and funny enough, I don't think that'll protect me much.
like, you may be able to pull a Ned Kelly, maybe, but it's pretty unlikely you'll be able to mount anything in any way effective, right? Apparently, the best thing to use for armor, for armor you have to throw together, improvised style, is like phone books and then like ceramic tile over it, which will
Okay.
shatter and dissipate the bullet pretty well. But like, it's not like if you're going into
It's not
combat.
Kevlar.
No, it's not Kevlar, right?
Yeah.
Like you've seen with your own eyeballs, someone shooting an MP5 at point blank range into a bulletproof vest. Did it go through the vest?
Nope.
It did not. That vest stopped that bullet totally cold. Just like pulled the bullet out, little mushroomed out bullet.
Yep.
It went nowhere. It was amazing.
It was.
That stuff works, but guess what? You don't have
I don't
Kevlar.
have Kevlar.
You don't have.
Closest I have is Teflon.
And you're gonna strap some pots and pans to yourself.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure the bullet will go right through that.
probably.
Right. The idea is that if you are throwing armor together for yourself, if you're like, well, I better withstand the evil one, I better put on this bucket that I found in the garage, I better wear these hockey pads, and now I'm good for combat. No, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will be destroyed fairly quickly if you're just throwing together what you can find at the last second. It's not a good look, and it's not effective. And if thousands of years of human activity have led you to anything, it should be to say, yeah, well, we can defend ourselves with what we see around us, or we can use what's worked for a long time. And why bother giving up on that? Why bother being all like, don't need it, I'll be fine on my own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else on that?
I don't think so.
And also to understand, one last thing, is that the armor changes commensurate with the weapons that are being used. So the armor is there to adapt to the weapons that are being used, which is why we don't wear plate mail anymore, because that wouldn't work.
Right.
Like, you just shoot a hole through that in 1 second. It doesn't do anything. That's why we wear Kevlar now. That dissipates the bullets a lot better. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that if you are wearing armor not designed for the weapons that you're going to be facing, you're going to be in real bad trouble again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're saying, well, this armor seems good for now. If it's not keeping up with the weapons that are being used, if the devil is using stuff other than the weapons that you're hoping to face, it's still going to punch a big hole through you no matter what.
It reminds me of David and Goliath, right? Where David was being outfitted with the armor that was not made for him, and
Yeah.
instead said, well, no, I'm going to use essentially the armor of God, right? That which God can use to protect me. And it worked, right?
did.
It worked a lot better when he was able to put his trust in the protection of God than in the protection of man.
Right.